So you're trying to make a movie or a short film or a video, and you're wondering how you can write a script that looks professional. Hi, I'm Tim from the Herrick District Library, and today I'm just going to help you out with how you can actually set up that document and that script to look the proper way. Now, I want to start off the discussion just by saying you actually really don't need to do this to make a video. I did not type out a script for this video. You don't even need it to make a short film. There's a specific standard of script formatting that people use in Hollywood or on independent films, and the reason there's a standard format is to make sure everybody is on the same page, no pun intended, so that you know if you're shooting 2 pages in a day that you know how long that's going to take more or less, so that the producer and the director and the art people and the actors all understand what's going on. So if you're working with a small team or by yourself, you absolutely do not need to format your scripts in this way. There's nothing magic about it, so don't worry. That said, if you are planning on submitting a script to a competition, or you're a film student, or you'd like to learn for the future, or you are planning a short film and you want your team to be all on the same page and you'd like it to be a little bit more quote-unquote official, then welcome, you're in the right place. And the good news is writing a screenplay properly is actually quite easy. There are loads of script writing software. You could even do it in a Google document. However, it is much, much easier if you find something dedicated to screenwriting. So the one we're going to be using today is called WriterSolo.com. And it is free. So that's the nice thing about it. And it's very simple, but it does exactly what you need it to do. So I've got my script here, as you can see, and we have a very short scene set inside of Where Else, a library. But we're going to be sort of rewriting this scene from scratch. So when you create your account, you're going to want to make a project name. So we're just going to call this At the Library. And we're going to call the document also At the Library. And when it says what template would you like, we're going to go with Screenplay. Don't worry about all these other options. I'm sure they're wonderful, but today we're just going to be working on a screenplay. And you'll be greeted with this blank page. So it's a little intimidating. You don't know what to write, but there's actually a formula for it. You do it in this particular order. And that formula doesn't hamper your creativity. It is just a universally recognized in the motion picture industry way to capture your ideas so that everyone can understand them. First thing you're going to do is think, where is my scene happening? So our scene is going to take place in a library. First thing we're going to do is set the scene with a scene heading. So what you do is decide, first of all, is this inside or outside? So at the library, we're going to be inside. So you write INT for interior. Then you write where you are, so library. And then you're going to add a dash, and then either day or night. Oops, single dash. And the reason that you write day or night is so that the lighting team and the people who are getting the locations know what the look is supposed to be. You don't have to write the exact time. This is just a production convention. And once you've done that, that's it. That's the scene heading. So we know where we are. So another example of a scene heading, and you can try this yourself if you're working somewhere else, would be exterior, so outside, swamp, night. And that would mean you're going to be filming outside in the swamp at night. But we're not. So I'm going to go back. And now if you hit enter, you'll go on to the next line, and you'll notice up here, it's automatically switched us from scene to action. Now, the second part of any screenplay is action. So this doesn't mean you have like actual fight sequences or anything. It just means whatever is happening. And it also means any descriptions. So anything that we see, because remember, we're describing a visual medium here. If you hit enter after a scene heading, a good software like this one will automatically switch it to action, but you can always pick it if it doesn't. And you're going to start off with, what do we see? So for example, in this case, we're going to have somebody sitting at the front desk, and his name is going to be John. So John, and then you're going to describe the character. Not everything about them, just enough for the casting department to be able to cast this person. So if it's not important what they look like, you don't have to write anything. But I'm just going to say he's in his 20s. So we're going to say John, a library assistant in his 20s, sits at the front desk of the library. Now, very important that you notice the tense that we're writing in here. So you write it in present tense, and you write it as if you're describing it right in front of you. So you say, John sits at the front desk. Think about it like if you're broadcasting a sporting event or something, you would say, they throw a touchdown. You wouldn't say past tense, he threw a touchdown. You're watching it happen. If you're used to writing like fiction, like a book, and you wrote in past tense, this might be a difficult transition, but just think you're describing what you see. Now, I want John to have somebody to talk to, so we're going to introduce a new character. A patron walks up to the desk carrying a stack of books. Okay. Now you'll notice in this case, I haven't described what the patron looks like because for our purposes, it's not important. I did include their age. And you'll notice I have the word patron and John capitalized. Now that just tells us that it is a character. And the reason you capitalize a character like this is because anyone who's casting your film needs to be able to look through and see how many people they need to get to be in this movie. You only capitalize their name, by the way, the very first time they appear. You don't need to capitalize it every time. So if we talk about John again, he won't get a full name capitalization. So that's it for action. You're going to write who's there, what they're doing, right, as if you're watching it happen. And then if they have a name, you're going to want to capitalize it. So even if they don't have a name like patron, unnamed, you want to capitalize that name just so we know that there's a new character. Next part we're going to want to do is have characters and dialogue. So we're going to have these people talking to each other. So John's going to talk first. If you hit enter, it will move you over to action again. So you can see up here, it's still action. It thinks we're writing more action. We want to write character. So you can click on character. You can also hit the tab key and that will tab you through the options as you notice up here. Up to you, whatever you'd like to do. But if you click on character, you can write the character's name, so John, and then enter. And now it'll auto set us to dialogue. So the character's name and then what they say. So John is going to be very creative today and he's going to say, "Hi, how can I help you?" So that is what John is going to say. Then we're going to go down and hit character again, and we're going to say the patron. And the patron's going to say, "Hi, I would like to buy these books." Now you can keep writing dialogue back and forth like this. If there is anything you want the characters to do in the meantime, you can write that as action. So for example, right now, I think before John or the patron says anything else, we're going to have the patron put the books down on the desk. You can break up between dialogue and action. So just write it in the order you think it would happen. So hopefully so far making sense. Character name and then dialogue. And if you're not sure how to format any particular thing or you don't remember how far over something goes, just click on it and then you can check dialogue or character or whatever you need to click. So now I'm going to hit enter again. I want to get to a character because I want the patron to say something else. I want the patron to say how much. They're asking how much the books are. And you'll notice that the software automatically added this, CONTD, which stands for continued, and it just means the patron has 2 lines back to back. It should automatically fill that in for you, but if it doesn't, you can add it in yourself. Now, of course, if you know anything about libraries, you'll know that the books don't cost any money. So we're going to have John say, "Well, books are free, actually." And so hopefully that's enough dialogue for you to get the idea. We'll give one bonus tip. If you have a particular way you would like a character to say something, so for example, sarcastically, you can add that too. So the patron, and we're going to have the patron say that slowly. So this is called a parenthetical, and it goes in between their name and what they say, and it just tells us about how they say it. So you can always just hit enter after a character's name, choose parenthetical, and write how they say it. So kindly or whatever. Now you don't want to overuse these, right? You don't have to put one after every line. It's usually kind of obvious how the character would want to say the line, but if it's very important, you are welcome to. So we'll delete that one and we'll leave the one that says slowly. And then we'll just finish out the scene. So John's going to say, "You have to bring them back eventually, but yes." And then he scans the books. The patron picks them up glowing and walks away. Patron says, let's see, "I'm never going to buy a book again." And then John watches them leave and smiles. And then he's going to say a last thing. We're going to add a parenthetical, and he's going to say to himself like this, "Wait till they find out about our DVD collection." And that's the point of that parenthetical saying to himself, is just so the actor knows to not say, he's not saying it to anybody else. So that's another example of a parenthetical being useful. An important thing to note, this all takes place in a single scene. And a scene sounds like it's just a buzzword, like you say, a scene from a movie, I liked that scene. But there is actually a definition of a scene as far as screenwriting goes. The time for you to add another scene heading is if the location or time changes. So if we have another scene that takes place outside of the library, you would start like this. So exterior library day. That's when you would switch to a new scene. So we didn't do it in this screenplay, but if you're writing your own, you need to be adding a scene heading anytime you switch locations. And depending on how you define location, moving from a kitchen to a living room could be a change. The reason you're doing this is just for, again, the people producing the movie together. If they think you're filming in the kitchen and then you move into the living room and you didn't say anything about it in the script, they may not be ready for that. So there you have it. That is pretty much the way that a screenplay is formatted. There are edge cases, if you notice up here, for how to write a shot or specific text or end an act or song lyrics, or if you have a phone call, there's some different conventions. But for the most part, all you need to know is scene heading with interior or exterior description and time of day. You need to capitalize your characters' names the first times that they appear. You want to give just enough description about the character for the casting department to pick a person. And you're describing things in the action as they happen. So sits at the front desk, walks up to the desk. And then as far as dialogue goes, it's just the name and then what they say. The name and then what they say. And just remember that you do not need to format this officially just to make something. Don't let it stop you from creating. But if you want to make something that looks a little more official, or you want to work with a group, or you're planning on submitting this, then hopefully this video was quite helpful. Have a great day and happy writing.